Of course, you don't trust them. Most definitely not. And the reason why you don't trust them is because the whole concept of trust is probably misunderstood, and you got involved with the wrong team of people, or you got involved with the wrong person or persons. Stay till the end of the video and then you'll get to the gist of why you don't trust them and possibly why it makes sense or it doesn't. Okay, here we go. Okay, first of all, you definitely won't trust them. And the reason why you won't trust them is because, from the perspective of how trust is designed, most people think that trust is actually just given up front, which is a possibility. And some people move in that direction. And I've been one of those people in the past. I've given my trust up front with no validity or no valid reason or justification, no proof that the person was deserving. I guess there was some amount of naivety on my part. But trust is not something that comes automatically. It actually takes time to build trust, and time to the point where it's almost like it's obsolete. And some people, what happens to them is that they start to trust after the fact. Let me check this video and make sure that this washing machine is trust is, yeah, the washing machine is, put it on stop because it was too loud. um there are some core aspects of trust, and there are not only people within the society, individuals, groups, people connecting to corporations, in enterprises, and also institutions that go on the basis of trust. The problem with trust is that if given freely upfront, it moves away from how the word operates within the context of the acceptance of, let's see, I'm trying to say this clearly. All right, I can say it clearly, but I'm being careful what I say. It's how the word operates and what is agreed as to how it's defined and how it moves throughout the environment in which it is used. So there are some core aspects of trust that must be highlighted. One is that it sometimes will come to realization after it has almost become obsolete or to the point of dissemination. So that means that when you find that sometimes trust will come about when two people have decided to go their separate ways, or a group decides to go their separate ways because of challenges, issues, or disagreements, or just an understanding that over time it will be accepted that, of course, now there is knowledge of what to expect almost. So there can be an assessment, and on that basis, there'll be more of an even playing field, because the way the word operates is that it operates on a higher tangent, and there must be agreement as well. So when trust is questionable, that's because the agreement is not there. One of the core things that must be highlighted. The next thing is that if the way in which the word operates, if there is not enough information in the connection or in the contact, for lack of a better word, there's a questioning element within the parties that causes them to want to find out more information and wanting to search for some sort of truth. So if the truth is disproportionate on either side, or if there's small amounts of information being shared, or if the information is tweaked accordingly to just create impressions, let's say, uh, what happens is automatically um, automatically something something happens as a result. So you can have different outcomes that occur. Different outcomes may potentially be that more information is shared and the trust is enhanced over time, or information is shared, but after the information is shared, the the agreement is changed or questioned. So if the agreement is changed or questioned, then the trust element becomes either eroded or reinforced. Example: two people agree that they like apples. Initially, it seems like that is the foundation of the agreement between them. As time goes along, it's realized that they share a meal, and one person is not receptive to eating apples, or one person asks for green apples, not red apples. Those small encounters, this is just a hypothetical example, those small encounters are building the dynamics of the relationship that is being formed. So if the agreement is not there, it's almost like initially the impression was given that you liked apples, but now I'm realizing you don't really like apples the way I like apples. You like green apples, you don't like red apples. And I know it sounds very simplistic, but it can cause a problem. And why it can cause a problem is because there wasn't a clarity of the information. So the other person or the two parties know they received the information, and when they receive the information, they have the choice now to decide what happens as a result. And that in itself is a small formulation of other things to come without realizing it. So they have a choice to make at this point. They can say, well, you know what? I really wanted to connect with somebody that likes green apples and not red apples. Or, yeah, why not try green apples? Or I respect that you like red apples and I like green apples. So there must be some form of agreement. Now, I think this happens not only in like intimate connections, but this happens in the family, in the household, in relationships, even relationships with individuals, as well as relationships with organizations and corporations too. Because building the foundation structure of what one hopes to achieve, one can only align themselves so much in the hope of the outcome, but there is a reliance on other parties in the whole scheme of things. So let's say you're looking for a relationship, or you're looking for a job, or you're in the pursuit of a career path, and you're playing the game according to all the expected ways that you're told that the rules are sorry, are designed, and you've adhered to all those rules, and you've gone on the basis of what you were told by other people that were in a position of being responsible, having more information, and you had a sense of reliance on those people to feed you that information on the basis that it would work to your best interest. That's the assumption. So on that basis, this could be parent child relationship. It could be individuals within the society trusting how the institutions operate in it to safeguard them or create opportunities for them. But what's realized is that the information that is what's realized is that the trust element cannot fully apply to whether individuals or structures, family structures, household, or commitments to friendships or institutions. Why it cannot fully apply? The reason why it cannot fully apply is because of the reasons I've stated. Trust is something that is reinforced over time. Two, it is on the basis that there's agreement between parties. Three, information is shared and there's elements of truth that are connected to that information. And any lack of information can cause disagreement or disruptions to the trust element. So when going for example for uh, and it's so important now that I'm going deeper into the video. It's important to take time to find out about the people that one is connected with or the organizations that one is connected with, because as a person operates in terms of creating a, a, let's say a better version of themselves in the hope of attracting another person, or organizations create impressions of the better version of themselves within the criterion of what should how a good organization should operate. So as a person, you're going into the as an individual, you're going into the society from a basis of your connection to your parents, thinking that, okay, I've trusted my parents. I had no choice but to trust my parents. My parents knew what they were doing. They showed evidence in some scenarios that it was workable. And now that will definitely work for me in terms of what is expected to come. The problem is that trust not only operates on its own tangent of the agreement and the information that I've given you as to how it works, but it also operates differently for different individuals and groups, and it is ever changing. And the reason why it's ever changing is because there's so a multiplicity, I hope that's the right term, yeah, multiplicity of information being exhibited from different people, different standards of assessment, different ways in which people are changing and growing and organizations are changing and growing, that what happens is it becomes very challenging to be able to have any concrete evidence of trust. The next thing is that many people are operating on different vibrations and different levels. Trust in itself operates on the higher tangent of a vibration. And when it operates on the higher tangent of a vibration, it is sealed in terms of there's a limit to the trust element. If it is, I know it sounds a bit like a limit to the trust element. Yes, there is. And maybe the reason why it operates like that, where there's a limit to the trust element, is because there are different people and environments should be allowed to operate outside of trust, because it's not viable in the current state of things. It's always a future type design of how things operate, and what you'd have to do is have the experience and then be able to reflect on the experience. After reflecting on the experience, be able to make an assessment and then be able to make a judgment call. But you can't make a judgment call and say that you 100% trust a person or situation or environment. You can't make a judgment call to say you 100% trust even yourself in some scenarios, unless you've come to the state of full realization, which can evolve and change. And you can't make a judgment call with limited information when that limited information or that information that is required to reinforce trust is on the basis of two people are more agreeing on the fact that there's the information is not tailored to an advantageous position or destructive position, or the information is not tweaked, the information is there's an element of what's the word, um where you show the full information to the other person. Now what happens also is that because the environment operates in that way, from the foundation structure, from the childhood interactions, and it's evident that the childhood interaction sometimes, even though it might have worked for the design of how parents operated before, some it didn't work for, and it doesn't necessarily mean that the child or turning into an adult will go into the society and it will be workable for them because of. Sorry about that. I was trying to get my thoughts together again. Yes, so what one might find, or some of you out there may find yourselves into, is scenarios where, for whatever reason, there's an action that contradicts the whole idea and it's not identified. So because of from childhood, there's a I guess you come into the world and you automatically have no choice but to just be reliant or dependent on other people to know what they're doing, and then you grow up on the back of that. But when people give are older now and there's an embedded blueprint in the mind, and the blueprint doesn't fit in with the way the world operates or should operate, because those people or experiences were a contradiction to how trust operates. When somebody, let's say, goes into a connection or a relationship or into an environment and they decide, you know what, I'm gonna just share information upfront fully, without reservation, without holding back at all. Just imagine going into a relationship and telling them the worst parts of oneself. Most people would fundamentally be put off. Just imagine going for a job and the organization will show you the ins and outs about how the culture is questionable within the organization, how competitive it is, how people operate from a management standpoint, or how strategic and in some cases spiteful and egotistical, and how that organization is driven by different motivations that we don't want to go into because it's not necessary. But imagine going into any institution or corporation or enterprise or environment or relationship and them telling you the full information up front, even though they know that they're correcting certain things, they're ever evolving and growing. You wouldn't want the job. You wouldn't want the job. And most people, not all, depending on how evolved or advanced the thinker is, and even the most advanced thinker maybe in a situation where they start to question, do I really want this, because it may not fit with their values. Some people may just initially get the best out of the relationship from a, I don't know, pleasure standpoint, or it could be a monetary standpoint or whatever. Or some people just say, you know what, that's not for me. I don't want to operate on that tangent. I'm looking for something else. I don't even understand my own identity, and any identity that I do have, I don't want to align it that way. Or they have criteria, they have certain set ways of operating because they have embedded information that is just you coming into the relationship and trying to actually change what is in the mind or the subconscious embedding of that person is like you trying to fix yourself without knowing what the core problem is of the issues that you have. So it's like you're taking on a task that's outside of your hands. Now, it's a bit questionable as well how people perceive what trust is on the basis of what I've said. Because if somebody is completely upfront with information, or an organization is, the receptiveness may differ or may not. Yeah, may differ, definitely differs, because based on probability and so on, and different mathematical assumptions, one can definitely say the response is going to be different. But those people and organizations, and remember, behind every organization there are people, and so you're dealing with people, even though there's a differentiation between the organization and the person from a legal standpoint. So, however, what the person will do is resort to what they know trust to be as true. Because remember, everybody's truth is different. Even though the truth is just truth, and when you hear it, it is. But some people, everybody operates differently with how they receive truth, because you can tell somebody something that is true and forever they'll not believe it. So the person or individuals will go back to what they know to be true, and that truth will be shaped by the individuals they encountered on the journey, as well as their experience in the society itself. So not only from a trust issue, you from a trust standpoint, when you're going into a relationship or any form of connection, the trust is not only based on two individuals. Now that I'm going deeper into it, it's based on the history within the those two individuals, of all the people they connected with and all the experiences they have, and the ability for them to take that data and process that data to the degree where they can find a common ground of what is appropriate as truth. And as a result of the truth element, then they'll decide if the trust element can be there or not. For me, I think I was always the type of person that I kind of, not in all cases, but sometimes I put my cards on the table just to get rid of the situation, because I don't have time to waste, and it makes no sense to pretend about who you are with any person or organization. So sometimes you might find yourself being interviewed almost like, are we an appropriate fit? And for me, I prefer, I think I'm at the state, or yes, stage in my life where I can look at information closely outside of what is expected, and look for anomalies or abstractions, or to find some sort of truth in the information. So as a result, if I look at my ability to assess people and information, and I am the type of person that, dependent on who it is, some information I'll just share up front, and hold back some information because of that gap. Now, this lack of that gap between information that is shared and not shared is one of the biggest issues in how markets operate, how people operate within those markets, and how prosperity, growth, wealth, development, and all those aspects evolve within those markets and societies. So, one of the greatest issues in the society now, from a perspective of financial positioning, or just wealth, or like I said, human development is the lack of information that people have and how they process that information on the basis of their experiences from the past. Now, some agendas, personal, household, whatever, different points of agendas will be pushed to say, oh yes, we need more information, we need more information. But the problem is that recovering from the lack of information is a big issue right now because of how markets, stock markets, how demand and supply moves, how customers assess how relationships are determined and so on. There is a recovery process from just the information that was lacking from before, and the lack of information of understanding how one operates within the environment that one is in is also important, and that is confusing in itself. So how is it possible for you to, of course you don't trust them. You don't trust them. You don't trust, some people don't, they're not even in a position to say they trust themselves. You can trust yourself within certain parameters because there are certain guidelines that and human behavior patterns that are acceptable or not. But if information is shared that is a contradiction of how the other person or individuals operate, there are some reactions that happen as a result that are outside of your control. So you may have the person pulling away, and then you have to go through that whole recovery process of saying, oh my God, what am I going to do now? What did I do? What didn't I do? What could I have done differently? Or a company decides that, okay, you know what, we didn't give them the full information, but now what happens is we know how we operate internally, yeah, and they're caught in the middle, but we have to pretend as if everything is good on our side because we're in the advantageous position to do so, and then if anything we sacrifice the other person, or we just hope that this whole thing will go away. And this is how so many individuals are living their lives on a daily basis, living their lives from the viewpoint of not understanding not only how the environment that they're living in operates, and that is fully complex in itself, so that is understandable. It's just going blagging it, just going along trying to figure it out. But it's necessary for us to come to a point in our stage, like from as humanity advances through time, it's necessary to just stop for a minute. And how does one stop for a minute and look at the blueprint when the blueprint has so many gaps in it, and you basically have to survive on a daily basis, and you have obligations as well to people who are dependent on you, who are in the next generation, but you were taught that you're supposed to just automatically trust the information and trust the people from before who didn't get it right at all. So you're caught in the middle, and not only you're caught in the middle, but you're caught in the middle and you're under judgment from this whole scenario that cannot be assessed from a fair standpoint, because at the end of the day, the way trust operates is not one which you can say that you trust them. And that's why trust is lacking in the society right now. And it's very daunting. But although it's daunting, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And the light at the end of the tunnel is coming to the realization of how things work, how they function, and how to adjust oneself in the context of how those things function. Because you going in with a sense of naivety, you have to be, not even naivety. If you say you want full information from somebody, you have to be prepared for whatever information is shared with you, that you're ready and receptive to the idea that the information could come any which way. And how does one handle that? One would have to be able to look at what one's biases are, how they discriminate, how they create judgment calls, how they assess information, how they view individuals on the growth timeline. There are so many factors that it will always come back. And also what is the knowledge of the individual to be able to create the basis of trust in the environment, or within a private setting. So of course you don't trust them. Going out into the society and automatically giving the impression that, oh yeah, yeah, I trust this organization. Yeah, everything will work out as I've been taught. Yes, oh, my parents did it like this, or okay, my partner, husband, lover, if you're a man, if you have a wife, whatever it is, yeah, automatically it will all work together. But it can only work together on the basis of the information that is available, and on the basis of the ability for, when the information changes, that there's an understanding of how to adapt or adjust in that scenario. But from a foundation standpoint, one would have to be able to first look at oneself. And I will keep going forward to the whole idea that self is important. I don't think it's so much about the other people, because if you understand that, how you respond to the reality of what is at the time and the way things operate is more important than those things that are going on. How you adapt, how you readjust to situations and circumstances. What tangent are you operating on in terms of receptiveness? How will you be able to say, okay, how can I advance through the realities of this environment, or this what are my recovery patterns? Because the most important thing that you can do is act in the context of the knowledge that you have, advance that knowledge, and also be prepared to advance yourself in your thinking and your approach. So if some people out there are looking at, how do I trust moving forward, trust is really up in the air and up for grabs. But the most important thing is learning how to trust yourself and your ability to actually cope in the environment, and not be closed-eyed to what is really happening in that environment, and teaching the next generation as well a different, or a better approach to the survival within that environment, so that one can evolve and actually operate at the fullest, or at the optimum of one's ability within the constructs of what they can. And there must be fairness at some point. That's where human, or that's where empathy, forgiveness, and, well, forgiveness under some circumstances, that's where understanding, cooperation, compromise, and an attitude of sincerity. Because if one can look at oneself and say, okay, you know what, I really don't know, I haven't figured it out, I'm ignorant to a certain degree of so much information, that for me to take a position that is condescending, or a position of being not humble, or a position of surety, because from a trust standpoint, one is looking for surety, one is looking for predictability, which is how the human operates. We love predictability, but we don't love predictability, because we like that element of not knowing as well, because we like to be surprised. Some people, not all. So I'm gonna close this video and say, if you're gonna trust anybody, first of all, learn to trust yourself. Learn about you first. Learn about you first. And if it is that you've learned about you and you've